It's the Indie Writers Club with Cara Clare and James Blatch. A place to relax, chat, learn and vent about life as an independent author. Get episode alerts and links at indiewritersclub.com. Now, here's Cara and James.
Hello and welcome to the Indie Writers Club. It's a Friday, it's me, James, and here is...
I told you before, it really throws me when you ad-lib at the beginning.
You're quite robotic about this, aren't you? You require it to be...
Yeah, it's like, no.
This form of words. You're like one of those very hard, high-maintenance presenters in a TV studio where everyone has to walk on eggshells the whole time. You can't get anything slightly changed. If somebody walks in their eye line... Have you ever heard the recording of, who is it, not Christian Slater, who's the Welsh or English Christian, very intense actor, brilliant actor. Christian Bale. Have you ever heard him going off on one on set whilst making Terminator something 4?
I'm sure I did at the time. Yeah, I'm sure I did at the time.
Oh, somebody walked in
his eye line. Was it because somebody moved or something?
The DOP went around doing some work whilst he was in his take, which is not the right thing to do. But there's a very funny satirical version of it where they use the actual ranting from Christian, but they inserted the guy from Family Guy. The guy from Family Guy, what's his name? The dad.
I don't know. I know who you mean. Peter.
He's
the character. I don't know the actor.
You and me, we're done professionally. He's like, so we're still friends. He's just, I don't want you ever moving. So I was going to throw some M&Ms at you whilst you were working. So anyway, yes. So now on Sunday night, I was watching like half the world, half the planet was. Well, I'm sure you weren't. I was watching the golf because Rory.
Yeah, I was going to say half the planet.
I think a lot of the planet was watching the Masters on Sunday night, and it was the most it was golf's greatest day. It was the most enthralling, gripping, emotional roller coaster that had this incredible ending. And Robin and I, our sort of third wheel, were texting each other, and all my golf friends were texting each other about that. And
did you say golf friends? Because it sounded like you said girlfriends. My
golf friends, yeah, not my girlfriends. And we were saying that if you're not into sport, sport's just not something you watch. You do miss something on those occasions. And I do understand not everyone's into everything. The most enthralling kind of watching a story unfold in front of you. And it's the same reason we read novels is you watch a football match because you don't know what's going to happen next. And the more you know about it, the setup on Sunday was perfect because you had a 15-year setup for this one night.
Just such a lot of investment though.
Well, we just for 15 years we've been following this guy and he's just never been able to crack this one tournament, which happens every year. And over the last 6 or 7 years in particular, all that happens is he turns up. He's one of the world's greatest golfers, Rory McIlroy. He turns up, he's missing this one major. If he gets it, he becomes one of 6 golfers in the history of golf, which is 150 years, to have got all 4 majors. And Augusta's like the Wimbledon of majors. It's the one everyone wants. He just can't do it. He's had a 4-shot lead going into the last day. He's been there, or he just falls away on day 2. But all the talk for the week before, like any big sports tournament, they just preview is endlessly been about Rory. Are you going to do it this year? For like 5 or 6 years, it's been intense. And it's a pressure that he can barely cope with. So he's obviously an incredible elite sportsman, but he's also a human being. And you can see him. You can watch him crumbling. And on the first tee on Sunday, where he had a 2-shot lead, it was him versus Bryson DeChambeau, very all-American guy. Rory could barely hit the ball. I mean, he was so nervous, and he had a terrible first hole. And by hole 4, he was behind in the game, and then he came back, and it was just, I'm not going to just describe it to you, but it's anything you think you're going to get out of a film or a novel, you got out of watching that round of golf.
Well, it's because you're invested in his character, James. That's why.
Yes, exactly. Exactly, and it's not a frivolous thing to say to think about. For those of us who did watch it, and there'll be some people listening to this who, were in tears at the end of the night, as anybody was. All the commentators were crying, trying to talk over what happened at the end. But they will know. It's not a frivolous thing to say that you watch that and think, well, why did I get emotional then? Why was I collapsed physically onto the floor in the middle of that round when things were going wrong? What was that? And it's not just because had they said his goal for A and his goal for B, and it'd been quite an exciting match, the same match, you still would have been, it was quite interesting in the middle bit, but there'd be no emotional attachment.
Yeah, exactly.
But 15 years of growing up with Rory McIlroy, of seeing him, of seeing the pain, seeing the struggle. He's not everybody's cup of tea. I think he's generally very well liked, but there are some people who just don't like him. There's not a straightforward character. All of that character back story was the reason it worked like that. And DeChambeau being this kind of slightly two-dimensional American chest thumper. My son loves him. He's a big in that kind of generation of, he goes to the gym a lot, he's pumps iron, he hits the ball like a country mile. But yeah, it was perfect. So, it's...
I mean, I'm not a sports fan. I'll watch like big sports events, but I don't really follow them. So I don't really have that. But if you think about like when people have those kind of reactions to things, it's always the emotional journey that they've been on, whether it's a football team or darts, or my dad is really into the Tour de France. And every year for Father's Day, I get him the Tour de France like guide and stuff, and he follows it religiously. But the things that make the days in that the most gripping are when it's somebody's personal story. Somebody's had to overcome something. Somebody was doing really badly, had an accident, struggled. They had personal struggles beforehand. Those are the things that grip people to it the most. So you're right. I don't think it's a frivolous thing to say, think about the character and why people have that emotional reaction to stuff.
Yeah. And long story short, it's not good enough to write a good story.
Mm.
That's only going to get you so far. Yes, it will get people through the book. There's a line in the Sharon Horgan Island advert. I don't know if I quoted this the other week.
You spoke about it last week, yeah.
That people come for the story, and people forget the story long after they've still remember the characters.
Yeah, and I think we're going to do another episode on character as well, aren't we?
Next week, we're going to do characters again.
And it will probably come up when we do our episode where we dissect Slow Horses and Gladiator 2. Because somebody said to me, that's a weird pairing. Why those two? But we won't talk about it all now because we're going to talk about it on the episode. But I think character is the thing that links them. Two completely different things. One is a TV series, one is a movie. They couldn't be more different. But the things that we can talk about in terms of character with those two things, that's what's going to make it really interesting, I think.
I think the really important thing when we talk about character and story is the universal elements that apply. So it doesn't matter whether it's a sword and sandals epic or a modern day spy thriller or a contemporary romance or whatever. Those universal factors are the things we need to understand and employ. And actually watching different genres, comparing them against each other, why that worked, why that didn't, helps you get to that point quicker rather than thinking, that's a romance, that's why they did that. No, it doesn't matter if it's a romance.
Yeah, no, exactly.
It still requires that same investment in character, etc.
I agree. I think it's one of those things where you can talk universally and it doesn't matter what you write, the rules about how to, or not necessarily even rules, but how to write good characters that people love and that are going to help you essentially sell more books because people will want to read them. That doesn't matter what genre you're writing, unless it's erotica, because I saw somebody saying in a Facebook group the other day, where's all the erotica gone? Everything has a plot now, and I really just miss having erotica.
Yeah.
Because I think people don't quite understand sometimes the difference between smut and erotica. So smut has a plot and erotica doesn't. It's not a romance. It could be any couple. It's just, written for the actual sex scenes. So yeah, there's this poor person going, where's it all gone? Why does everything have to have a story now?
Is there a sub-market for spicy romance author to go back through their back catalogue, just pull out the sex scenes and recompile them into erotica books?
Yeah, well, I'm going to do some compilations of just the sex scenes only. Yeah, and I don't know if anyone's done it before, but I was going to try that, just literally compile the sex scenes. Because it's my content. It's just another way of repurposing your content. So, I'm sure there are people who just skip through the book just to get to the sex scenes. So why not save them the job, cut them out and sell them separately?
And how do you market erotica? Because it's very difficult. It must be invisible on Amazon.
Yeah, it's not something that I know much about, because even with reverse harem, you have to be very careful not to say reverse harem in your blurb, or Amazon will put you into the dungeon, which is the erotica category where you don't come up in searches. So then it's obviously a safeguarded thing. It's to stop people seeing it who are, searching for other stuff or minors or whatever. So you have to actually go to the erotica category to find it. But no, it's not something that I know much about, how to market erotica, but it must be very difficult.
Because there was that, I remember a few years ago when that question first appeared on the KDP bookshelf is kind of, does it have sexual content? And there was a big discussion amongst romance authors. Well, obviously I do have sex scenes, it's spicy, so I guess I have to tick that, and very quickly realised.
Everyone's like, don't tick it.
As soon as you tick that, your book was invisible.
Yeah, don't do that.
Yeah, so that's not what that tick means. That tick does mean erotica. There's nothing else. There's no plot. And funnily enough, so my old job watching pornography, amongst other things, at the BBFC, that was, of course, one of the areas we looked into. So you'd get what we called sex works, they were called, and they were submitted as sex works. And there's this whole thing, what is pornography? What is a sex work? And the boss used to say, David Cook used to say, well, I can't tell you, but I know it when I see it, type thing. But the broad answer is story.
Yes,
so, and pornography doesn't normally, 70s, 80s pornography had a bit of the plumber arriving, I guess, for the first 5 minutes, but it wasn't really story. So there'd be a setting,
there'd be a kind of very brief, like, this is who these people are and this is what's happening, but there's no story. And story is tied in with character, is about growth, it's about a relationship, it's about, if you're writing in one of the fantasy genres, it's about the other stuff that's going on. So if you're missing all of that and it's just, it's just the sex scenes and you're not expecting any emotional journey from those characters or growth in their relationship or anything else apart from the sex scenes, that's what makes it erotica.
Yeah. So that is our homework, isn't it? We should reinforce that again.
I think you mean Slow Horses and the Gladiator.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Not the erotica. Not the erotica, no.
Don't research erotica, everyone.
Don't research erotica. No, we are going to do an episode where we are going to go through... basically, we're going to go through 2 works and we're going to discuss what worked and what didn't work about them. And that... not going to restrict it to talking about character, story, etc., but it'll be all of that. So the 2 works we've chosen is a series with Gary Oldman called Slow Horses, which you'll find on Apple. If you watch at least series 1, I suspect you might end up watching more. And Gladiator 2, big feature film, multi-million-dollar feature film sequel to the original Gladiator. They are both behind paywalls, so Apple TV you'll need for Slow Horses. In the UK, it's $2.99 a month for 3 months. If you haven't signed up, so it's worth doing that because there's quite a few good series. Severance is on there as well, just for those 3 months. Gladiator, I seem to see it in the UK at least for $4.99. It probably means it's $5.99 in the States, something like that.
Yeah, and Slow Horses is a short TV series, so I think it's only got 6 episodes.
6, yeah, I think it's 6 episodes.
Just be warned, I ended up watching the whole 4 seasons that are available in about 4 days.
Yeah, we need to welcome our Patreon supporters.
We do. Do you have a list?
I do have a list. So not everybody's given I'm going to respect the fact that they've given just one first name. That's what I'm going to go with. So we're going to welcome our new Patreon supporters each week. And when are we doing our first live? It's soon, isn't it?
It's supposed to be Thursday, but we need to check who's coming.
Okay. All right. So
by the time this comes out, we will have done it.
We'll have done it, yes. Okay, so here are our first batch of Patreon supporters. So thank you very much to Sue, Hannah, Lorna Sixsmith, Camera Philosophy. Don't think that's the actual name, but is the name they've gone for. Jackie Elliott, Fatima Fayez, Siobhan Purcell, lovely Siobhan, Connie Cisco, Lynn Sheridan, Annette, Jerry Evanoff, Lindsay Complin. I think Lindsay's coming to the retreat as well. Kay, lovely Kay. Justine, I should say. Dragon and Gargoyle is another one.
Welcome.
Dragon is a name in Eastern Europe, isn't it? You do see it occasionally. Yeah. People call dragons, not unusual. Marie Claire Allington, Deanna Smith. Deanna Smith is here twice, likes it so much. Tony Harmsworth. Hello, Tony.
Tony.
Karen Ingalls. I know how to pronounce her surname.
Karen.
Linda Hutton. Parik Foreign. Is it Parik? Parish? It's probably, I'm going to say it's Irish. Parik, like Podrick. Maybe it's Pod. It's P-A-R-A-I-C.
I can't see what you're looking at, so no. I can't help you.
P-A-R-A-I-C. How much did Parik will let us know? I just feel that's like maybe some Gaelic in there. And Stephanie Hudson. What a great group to get going with on our Patreon support. So you can go to indiewriters.com/support if you want to join the throng, have your name read out next week, and be on a live Q&A with me and Cara once a month. in the top 2 tiers, that is, and lots of other things as well. So yes.
Yeah, there's the exclusive Discord channel, which I think is working. Nobody's told me that it's not working. So
okay. Am I in it?
You should be. Oh, actually, I'm not sure if you are.
Oh, I didn't notice it. I don't think you see it unless you're in it.
I need to add you to it.
Mm.
Well, that's a flaw because I set it up. I thought I was being clever. I set it up to automatically link to Patreon, but you're not an actual supporter. So yeah, I need to add you to the channel. Sorry about that.
Okay, so we're a slightly bitty episode this week. We're not going to have a theme. We're just going to go through some of the things that have been going on in the last week in our author lives. Cara, you've hit this sort of that moment in the old cartoons where they hit oil and the oil spurts up with your book sales.
Yeah, I mean, my head's still spinning a little bit. So, I mean, my TikTok, all of my marketing has been a real struggle for the last 6 months, but definitely for the last, I was looking back actually, and as far back as my graph will go on TikTok and Author Central with my rank and stuff, I think it's been about 18 months since I've had anything like this kind of traction. And yeah, not yesterday, the day before, a video just blew up and went to, I think it did 118,000 views in one day. And it's still ticking along, climbing up. But the videos that I've posted since have also been getting more traction now than they have in the last, God knows how long, I can't even remember. Yeah, but typical Amazon style, the day this happened, Amazon was having a massive glitch. So the rank was not updating in Author Central or on Amazon. Through a process of elimination, because then it did start updating within the actual categories. And I just happened to see my book inside one of the categories. And I was like, oh my God, I'm next to Sarah J. Maas. So by process of elimination, looking at what the other books around me were at, I think at the peak, I was about 200 in the UK store.
Wow.
But I'm just really annoyed that I didn't get the actual proof of what it was. But I mean, the page reads and things will tell. It's already about quadruple what my daily page reads have been for a long time. So yeah, I don't know what to say really. I'm still just in shock.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, I mean, it's perseverance. And I guess you need to do what Adam Beswick does now, which is just constantly repost that one video because it goes to different people every time. That's the how.
Well, TikTok's getting funny with me about reposting. So if this is the thing about TikTok, what works for one person, you then try it and it doesn't work. So for me, reposting doesn't work, but using an iteration of the same thing. So posting a fresh video, but basically using the same sound and using a variation of what worked on that one is what's working. And it was a kind of twist on I've said that the only way they're getting traction is by using these sort of trends that are going around. And the trend was a Pink Pony Club, the song by Chapel Roan. And the line was convincing you to read my book with one line. And obviously people in different genres were doing different things. And yeah, it was a 5.5 second video. So I think people had to keep rewatching it in order to read what was on the screen. But yeah, it hit. And the difficult thing about TikTok is it's not as consistent as the old days when you could get viral videos like that really often, or doing something like Facebook ads, Amazon ads, where you spend a certain amount, you get a certain amount. But part of what you kind of have to learn with TikTok is the mental challenge of keeping going. And it's a bit like seasonal sales. You ride the wave while you've got it, and then you keep pushing and you make sure you get as many eyes on that page as possible, and then just keep going with when the views eventually drop again. So yeah, I'm super pleased.
I'm pleased for you. Well, again, maybe I should try it with my my book, that trend one, because like I said last week, I'm starting to focus a bit more on social media and repurposing content and stuff. So I've been doing one TikTok a day, and that's gone well for me. So I've had like 25,000 views on one and 20,000 views on others. Yesterday's was less good, but it doesn't matter. You get some up and down. But what I do is I do military aviation stuff, and so I get lots of those followers, which is great for my book, but I then need to sell them the book, which, whereas
you then need to
your
funnel
thing
them onwards.
Is the book from the beginning. So, and I don't think they respond to a lot of the normal book talk methods because they're not book talkers primarily. They're there for F15s and 16s. So, but I think if I did a peek of one of the pages of my book saying guess the aircraft from these two sentences. That is the sort of thing that would work with them. So
yeah, or even
try that.
So, because we keep saying we're going to do an episode where we talk about sex scenes and action scenes because they're very similar. So, what worked for me there was a sex scene where people had to pause in order to read it. So you could post an action scene, and one of the things that gets traction with the sex scenes is you'll get people commenting, "Ew, I hate that word. Why would you use that word? What do you do next?" So even if you get people commenting on your action scene, that wasn't very realistic. They would have done it this way.
It's engagement, yeah.
It will engage people with it. So you could try the same thing of like picking either action or emotion. But for you, I think, the action probably given your readership would work really well.
Yeah.
But I think what the lesson for people listening is, that book is now nearly 3 years old, the book that blew up. And what I do love about TikTok is that you can make money on one book if you have that video that takes off, and it does keep your backlist alive. You've got things to keep marketing, and that still after 3 years has been my main thing that I market, is that first book in that main big series. But what was really interesting, I sent you the graph, didn't I, of where the views went. So my account used to be primarily US, and we're talking like 70% US audience, and the US wasn't even on the top like 10 breakdown of who saw that video. It was UK, other, which is usually Canada and Australia like lumped together, then Germany, then Netherlands, Italy, and then the US was all the way down the bottom at 2%. So that's something that I need to, you suggested that I got a VPN and a new phone, and I think it's time that I probably do that, because my US audience, I'm just not reaching them at the moment.
Yeah.
It's just purely funneling to the UK, which, fantastic. There's obviously a lot of people in the UK that haven't read my book yet, but the US is bigger.
Yeah.
So that's something that I need to think about.
Yeah, that's frustrating, isn't it? I don't know why TikTok is so territorial.
I think the ban, or the temporary ban, it massively shifted then. I think it was a case of, as we were approaching the ban, I noticed that it was starting to push my content more to the UK and Germany. And I think that's just stayed the case. I guess if the ban happens, then maybe it's a good thing that I'm already reaching the UK audience, but it's a big audience to be left on the table. So I think I need to investigate the VPN.
Yeah. Well, that ban's still not resolved, by the way. As every now and
then,
I think
another 70 days or whatever it was.
But the language coming out of the White House is more, it'll be fine type thing, isn't it? So, which hopefully will be the case. By the way, just on TikTok, I don't know if you're enjoying the Chinese luxury goods stuff. Have you seen this?
I keep seeing it pop up. Yeah.
It is hilarious. I mean, it's kind of scary how China operates as a country. So obviously they're in this massive tariff war, trade war with America, started by America, I should say, or started by one particular American. So massive tariffs go up on China, and China basically saying, you need us more than we need you, and we can be very disruptive if we don't have a harmonious relationship. And they're immediately proving this. So all these luxury goods, the Hermes handbags, I think they pronounce them in America, Louis Vuitton stuff, it's a lot of bags and stuff going on. The people making them are filming TikToks in their factories now. And they're saying, this is how we make the bag. This is an Hermes bag. We've made it for $1,300. This is the material. This is how we join it together. This is how we ship it. When it gets shipped to America, they sell it for $38,000. Our staff get minimum wage in this. And that's how this works. That's how the luxury goods market works. When you buy Louis Vuitton bag, it's made in this factory. You can buy it from us direct, by the way. Obviously, wouldn't have Louis Vuitton written on it, but it'd be everything but that. Buy it from us direct. Here's a link to buy it. That's how luxury. So they're basically exploding the myth of luxury goods and the reality behind it. And in China, nothing happens without the government's say. Nothing happens by accident. So this must be 100% is being demanded by the government that they're doing this. There'll be secret policemen standing just off camera. That's simply how it's an autocracy, how it works. But they don't muck about. The Chinese, they don't sit there saying, oh, we could be disruptive. Like British diplomacy would be, well, that would be pressure.
Be careful, or else.
Careful now. You're going to get a strongly worded letter from us.
Exactly.
And civil servants would be saying to a minister, that would be the nuclear option. We're not going to do that. Could it be irreparable damage between our countries, etc.? China just goes for it straight away. You're buying all these luxury goods. This is the reality of it, made by, people on peasants. And I use the word because that's a Chinese word for workers in factories. It's made by people who are on subsistence living, and you're walking around New York, Manhattan with them. So it's fascinating watching it happen. But anyway, not much to do with books. But if you're on TikTok,
but I think TikTok as a platform at the moment is a very interesting place. I don't want it to like monopolize our conversation, but it is, an important platform. It's where a lot of us sell our books, and politics is kind of getting wrapped up in that at the moment. But speaking of TikTok, can I do my rant now, or do you want to talk about something else first?
Yeah,
you can rant.
You can rant away.
Thank you. I've been bottling this for like 2 days. So I sent this to James, and it was just one of these things that I came across on TikTok. And the author was actually, I'm not going to name them because I'm not about piling hate onto somebody. But I came across them because they were doing a TikTok live talking about the new book that they were publishing, hopped onto their profile, saw that they were a pretty new indie author. And there was a few posts that were kind of, I'm new at this, I'm an indie author, please support me. Writing horror. They only had about 200 followers. But then as I flicked through, I noticed a bit of a theme with their posts, which was that their method of marketing seemed to be slagging off other books in order to say, buy mine instead, mine's better. So I screenshotted a couple, and they've now taken this down, actually.
Have they?
I'll just read them to you. So there's a picture of E.L. James on the first slide, and it says, 50 Shades, more like 50 Shades of Why Did I Finish This? The second one, and I'm reading these from my messages that I sent James, it said, Colleen Hoover, if I wanted red flags, I'd go to Hinge. Stop, put the cliches down. I've got something better. For readers who want more than shock and smut, and then a picture of their book. And I mean, I think part of what they were aiming for was actually to cause a fuss and go viral, because the caption underneath is, hope no one got triggered. But I replied and said there are better ways to market your books than belittling two women who were also indie authors before being picked up. Because then further down in the caption, he talked about, I'm an indie author, I don't have the budget of a big marketing firm. And I thought, you don't even know who these two people are, that they were both self-published before they were picked up. And it just really got to me, because first of all, belittling two authors who've done an incredible amount for the self-publishing landscape. Like E.L. James changed the self-publishing landscape and is a very lovely person, as we've both met her. She's been to indie events. Colleen Hoover, again, massively changed the landscape with her self-published books. Also belittling smut as a genre, and it's just a bad way to sell books.
It's completely unnecessary. You don't need to slag someone else off to say your product's good.
And the theme continued. There were other posts where there was one that was, I can't remember which Stephen King book it was, but if you thought this Stephen King book was too whatever it was, read mine instead. And it's like,
so I
somebody
think
needs to reach out and tell this person to do a course in advertising or marketing, because that has never been a good way to sell anything.
No, and it's fraught with danger. So there potentially is one upside. If you're a car manufacturer and your car outperforms every other car in class, I can see there being an argument for saying MPG against the Vauxhall, whatever, MPG against the GMC, ours is much better like that. But there's no emotional takeaway from that. You're not thinking, oh, you're being really nasty to those cars. You're proud of what you've done. That's a very limited example of how that can work. In this case, you are saying these people are bad authors and these are bad books, and you've got to read my book. The danger with that is you come across as an arsehole. And people buy books because they like authors. They get to know authors. There's a relationship with the author. Authors have a brand. This is Isabel Knight's territory, who was at the Ireland conference. They buy into you as much as they buy the books. And so you've got to think, is being a dick the right way to engender the kind of support I need as an author? And the answer to that is probably no.
Yeah, and even on a practical level, if we put aside the emotions and the fact that obviously I was massively triggered by the dickishness of it, it shows such a lack of understanding of how to market, because E.L. James readers and Colleen Hoover readers aren't interested in the horror book that you've written.
No.
So who are you aiming that post at? Who are you trying to reach?
By the way, even if E.L. James readers are interested in your book, they've read E.L. James's books. She didn't write that many books.
Yeah.
So there's a huge audience for you to say, love E.L. James, you're going to love my book too. I'm a fan of E.L. James's, and I think we can both enjoy that together. And that is the correct way of
I think
linking.
that's the thing, isn't it? What we do is, if you love this author, you'll love me. You don't say, if you thought Sarah J. Maas just wasn't really very good, read Cara Clare instead. It's just like, it's going to insult every Sarah J. Maas fan. It makes you sound completely.
And you're going to get the nitty readers who don't like anything. So they're going to be the first people to say, oh, you reckon you're better than Sarah J. Maas? Yours is even worse, or whatever.
It just...
there's no wins. There's no wins from that.
Yeah, so, and I have seen other people kind of do this, not to the same extreme, but I have seen a little bit of a trend of people on TikTok or in social media videos kind of going, poor me, I'm an indie, would you buy my books?
Don't do that.
Really hard to market my books. And it's kind of like, I understand like sharing your personal story, sharing, I'm an indie author, this is why it's important to me. These are ways that you can support independent authors and all of that kind of stuff, but not if that's your main form of marketing. If your main form of marketing is, please feel sorry for me and buy my book. No, like talk about the story. Write a story that's good enough to have something to pull out of it and say, this is why you should read my book, because it's a good book, not because you feel sorry for me or because I'm begging or because I need a hand. It's not the way to do it.
Yeah.
Rant over.
Yeah, good.
Done.
Well, it makes a change because people are used to me ranting. The last thing I've got on my list to talk about is Scribeshadow. Scribeshadow. It's a good, great name, isn't it? So I have bought into Scribeshadow for a month. I think I had to do the $99 option for 250 because my first novel is long. And
so this is the translation, AI translation.
Translation service using AI and human. I'll talk about that in a second. So yeah. So it's subscription based, and you get a number of words credits, but a credit equates to a word more or less per month. You can buy in and buy out of it anytime. So you can just buy 1 month, get a couple of books done, and cancel, and then buy next month. And they're quite happy with that. The system's set up for that. And you cancel, it just doesn't renew the next month. So you get the credits for the rest of the month. You can buy credits as well. So for I think it was £99 or $99 it would have been. I got 250,000 words. There's more than one way to spend the credit. So they have a proofing service built into it. So you go in, you upload your English manuscript. It breaks it down a bit like Vellum does. It looks at it and thinks, oh, here are all the chapters. There's a little bit of fiddling at the beginning because I had a forward, it thought it was a chapter, etc. So I worked that out. It offers you at that stage an AI proofreading service, which is a bit like, probably nothing like as sophisticated as PWA, but more like giving it to Claude. In fact, I think it probably literally is given to Claude and said, can you proofread this? So that will use up credits if you want to do that. So ideally, you won't have to do that because your book will have been edited and copy edited and be in a good place to start off with. But you do get that option after the translation. So then you can go chapter by chapter. Actually, no, the first thing to do is you can put in, it's a very easy to use system, much easier I found than 11 Labs trying to record stuff, which I found very complicated, but you can put in words you never want translated. So in my case, I decided Royal Air Force. I didn't want translated. That would have to be Royal Air Force in French. No, I'm going for French. All the titles, so Squadron Leader, Flight Lieutenant. I think people reading my books will be familiar with, it's a bit like me reading an Oberlieutenant in an English book about the German Air Force, talk about Oberlieutenant. I will know what that means and who that is. So I wanted that, and the aircraft names, so Canberra, Vulcan, Lightning, Javelin, etc. I wanted them to stay as they are. So I created all of them, as many as I could remember. It's quite hard to remember everything. Had them, had them not to be translated, and then pressed the button, and it translated every chapter into French, which was like half my 125,000 credits. Did it in minutes. You then get, and it will cost you again that 125,000, but I don't see why you wouldn't do it, to proof each chapter individually. And I think it goes back to Claude again. It's all done in Claude. So I'm guessing you could just do this manually in Claude.
I have heard people say that they've done it in Claude, just used it for translation by exactly doing that, just copying and pasting in each chapter.
But I think you would have to have, I don't know what sort of subscription you need in Claude to do that level and how much that would cost, and whether you just get blocked.
I feel like you would quickly run out of your because you can only have a conversation that's so long, can't you?
Yeah.
Before you get timed out. And I'm not sure how Claude's memory would cope with the whole book. So maybe Scribeshadow have a different, arrangement with Claude where they have more capacity.
I think they must do. And even if it's just a very nice front end, a nice convenient way of doing it, it's probably worth that $49.99 for most novels will go into the $50 bracket, which I think is 125,000 words. So that's it. So I've got my French book. I've done the proofreading stage as well. Question now is whether they do have an add-on service, which is a human. They've teamed up with a company. I don't know if I can find them here. They're on the front page somewhere. Oh yeah, problemsolved.es. So it looks like a Spanish company. Max at Problem Solved. You have to email him. And he has a special rate for people using Scribeshadow. And that's a human stage. So they will basically proofread in French your book. I don't know how much that's going to cost. I will definitely email Max and find out for information.
Yeah, I was going to say, so are you going to find out how much that would be? And then if that's too expensive, will you go to Fiverr? Or will you just do it?
Will I just, is this just an option? Because if I'm thinking if this is going to work and I'm going to do it in another 10 languages, I'm going to do it in Greek and Spanish and Portuguese and do I just do this as they are?
The control freak in me is like dying though, that I wouldn't know what's in it.
But if Max comes back and says, I mean, that should have emailed him before this episode, apologies. If Max comes back and says it's 250 euros, obviously that's a bargain. I'll do that. And I'll probably do that for every book. If he says it's 1,200 euros, that's not really going to make, that's 12,000 euros on stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
For 10 languages. And the point of this is you can do multiple languages and have your books just on every territory.
Yeah, I mean, after having that TikTok video blow and then seeing that Germany was the third biggest audience, and then I think it was France, then Italy, Netherlands. Somebody said to me, so what about your translations? And I was like, well, the German translations, I'm going with a publisher who it's a 50-50 split. They pay for the translations. Because I've got 9 books in a series, if I've got to pay, like you said, if it came back as $1,000 to proof each one, that's going to be nearly $10,000 to produce a series in Italian that I don't know if it's going to sell or not. So
the way this works, I think, is it's cheap and cheerful.
Yeah.
But I suppose, and I'm not scared of doing it because I think it can go up in French with French titles. By the way, when I translated the title, it gave me 3 options, all of which, it's quite difficult. I was asking Claude about the pros and cons of the titles were interchangeable. So you can actually publish, say, the 3 books in my series. I can publish in French. If the first set of reviews are, this is unreadable, the translation's awful, I'll pull them down. If I ever get it done again properly, I'll just republish them in the new titles. I haven't really lost anything. It's not like the books are sitting there with terrible reviews, damaging my brand. It's just a failed experiment in the background. So I'm tempted to find out the price from Max, but I'm tempted to go ahead now, having had that translated and proofread. And the other thing for me is probably the only proofreading I really need is like a military pilot. Who picks out those things. I think people look over some of the other stuff or slightly grammatical, not quite the grammar I would have used. But in my case, if you're reading military stuff and you've got half a knowledge about it and you call the horizontal situation indicator, that's mistranslated. That's going to grate. You don't know what a horizontal situation indicator is. Fine. But all you know is that there's one at the front of the plane.
In my genre.
And they need it to keep the wings level. So it's quite important.
I wonder if this will be one of the things that Amazon adds to its list of, so they're rolling out, aren't they, in beta? Authors keep getting emails asking if they want to enroll their books in the Audible Plus catalogue, where your Kindle book will just be automatically narrated by Amazon's AI. And I guess there's going to be an understanding then of people who are listening to it within the Audible platform. It will be flagged somehow as, this is Amazon AI narration. So they'll expect it to not be as good as a human narrated book. So I wonder if translations is something that they'll do eventually as well. Enroll your book into German Kindle Unlimited, we'll translate it for you with our AI translation, and then people who read it within that platform will understand that it's been done as part of a bigger kind of thing. It seems logical to me that they would roll that out if they're doing AI translations as well, audio translations as well. But I don't know what the audio is like. I don't know what the Audible, AI voice is like. And I do know, I think I'll research it and we'll talk about it on the next episode, because it's interesting how the pricing structure is going to change and how people are going to get paid. Because I saw Matt Dinnerman putting up a post about this the other day, and how at the moment it's not really affecting us because it hasn't taken hold yet. But the way that we receive our money is changing drastically, and our money will probably go down. People who are just in Audible normally.
Well, I mean, I have heard that the remuneration for the digital voiced audio stuff is not great.
Yeah. Well, so are you going back to your translations, are you going to get the covers redone? Are you doing the covers yourself?
I could do the covers. I mean, I'll check with Stuart. He's happy for me to do that. But to save him the hassle and the time, I can use AI to take the existing text off, even if I don't have the PSD file, the Photoshop layered files, where I can just change the text. And I'm happy to do that. I love doing that. I'm actually translating books in Vinci at the moment, get one of our authors into German, and to save Stuart the hassle, I'm just taking the existing PSD files and changing the text and doing the blurb on the back. So I'm happy to do that. I can do all of that. It does your blurb and metadata for you. It suggests keywords. Actually, in Scribeshadow, it suggests keywords in French. Based on your book. So I've got all the metadata, blurb, etc. there. So I think I'm going to get all 3 books done, and I'm going to rapid release them, i.e. put them all up at the same time in France. And then I'll see what happens for a week with doing nothing. And then I'll probably run some Amazon ads campaigns to it, which obviously you don't need to speak French to run Amazon ads campaigns. There's no copy or anything.
No, and presumably ads are cheaper in other territories. I don't know, because it's not something that I've ever done.
Yeah, the German ads are definitely cheaper on Amazon and Facebook. So yes, I would hope so on France as well. So I'll let you know how that's going. Yeah, so that's like I say, I've spent £99 so far. See if I can get actual prices in front of me.
I mean, because I remember when I looked at it and I thought, if you've got a lot of books to do, but you could do them all in say 2 months, it's worth going for the top tier subscription than just doing them all in 2 months and then cancelling, because it's just a rolling monthly thing, isn't it?
Yes.
But so how does it differ from 11 Labs? Because the last time I tried 11 Labs, you had to copy and paste your text in, and you could only do up to a certain amount per thing that was translated. So I don't know if 11 Labs has moved on, but I found that very frustrating when I started.
Yes. I have to say, I love the idea of 11 Labs and I love the voices, but I have found it quite a fiddly platform and I've actually given up for now. I'm going to go back and try again. I was trying to use, because you can identify your speakers. It's very clever. It identifies your speakers and you can then allocate them voices. And I was doing that, but it became very fiddly to do that. I couldn't get it through. And then I must have been, I don't know if I was being dumb. I'm not stupid about these things, but I couldn't get the stuff out. Couldn't export it anywhere. I mean, because it's sort of generating text, but I don't know where it was.
Yeah, because for those who don't know, 11 Labs is audio translation, and it is very good. The voices are very, very good. But I remember when I was doing it, I was thinking, this is going to take me so long.
Yeah.
It's not worth it.
So this is the Scribeshadow, which is the text translation. This is the Scribeshadow pricing. So they have a level called Inkling, which is only $4.99 a month, and you get 10,000 words. Monthly translation credits, it calls them, but they are effectively words. And you get access to all features. So for $4.99, you could do your short story if you've got one under 10,000 words and test the whole system out. Storyteller is $24.99 a month. This is US dollars. That's 55,000 words. Wordsmith is $49.99 a month. That's 120,000. So I think most people will go for that because that covers most novels when you first start. So you could do a novel a month on that. But then there's Novelist, which is 250,000 credits. So something I'll mention, I went for 250,000 because my book is literally just above 120,000 words, 127,000 words. But it's a good job I did go for Novelist and get 250,000 because the proofing is basically another round. So you probably need, if you've got a 100,000 word book, you probably need 200,000 credits to get the proofing done as well. Bestseller is $200 a month, or $199.99 for 600,000 credits, and then there's a publisher level, which is $399.99 a month, and that's 1.3 million credits a month. This doesn't include human, so it'll include the options available to you, and they will cost credits. Each one is translation to, whichever language you want, and then proof editing in that language.
Okay. And you just upload the whole manuscript. You don't have to do it chapter by chapter.
Yeah, the brilliant thing is you upload the whole manuscript and then it breaks it down into chapters. So I did, like I say, I probably did not spend long, and it was very easy to do intuitively the way it set it up, that I went through and I changed chapter 1 to forward and then renumbered the chapters. I've only got 30 odd chapters in my books, and it would take very long to do that. There's no way
that you could do that with Claude, because I think Claude doesn't even like manuscripts that are above about 60k. It struggles with anything bigger than that. So you might be able to do it, but you would have to paste in each chapter as you went. And I have a feeling that it would probably get confused, and like they must have some sort of separate kind of Claude server that they're using.
I mean, it is done by chapter. You can see as you translate, because when you press the translate, it says, do you want to do this chapter or do you want to do everything? And when you say everything, it says, by the way, we'll only do the chapters that haven't been translated yet. So it doesn't do them twice, which is a nice small feature to save your credits, which I liked. It does do it chapter by chapter, but it goes off and interrogates it. Another thing I didn't mention is you get to add some notes to the prompt. Mm-hmm. So in my case, I said, this story is set in a military aviation environment, so use terms familiar to military aviation pilots and people who can fly planes, which was something that was lacking in one of my earlier translations, and I had to get done by pilot officers. Now, I don't know how far that will go, but I know Claude can do it because I've worked with Claude with my other translations with passages saying, can you check this? And Claude will say, more commonly used by pilots is this expression in German. But this is the literal translation. So Claude does understand that.
I wonder how it would cope with the sex scenes in mine.
Yeah.
If it would just tell me off, I don't know.
That's a very good point. That's a very good point.
Yeah. If anyone's used it, let us know for romance, for sex scenes, or, just if anyone's used it and put up the translation and published it, let us know what your results were and what the reviews were like. Because that's the key, isn't it? It's what the reviews say once you upload it. And I think the thing is, I struggle with the idea of, but if it was bad and everyone hated it, then I had to take it down. But currently, you don't have an audience in France at the moment. So you're not damaging your brand because you don't exist there at the moment. And it's worth trying it because it's money left on the table. It's using your intellectual property in another way.
Le Danse de la Mer. Do you know what that is? That's the
Dance of the Sea.
The what? La Danse de la Mer.
Dance of the Sea.
Dent. D-E-N-T-S.
No, I don't know what that is.
Teeth.
Dance. Teeth of the Sea.
The
Jaws
Teeth of the sea.
Okay.
So that is the name that Peter Bench's novel Jaws has in France. La Danse de la Mer.
Is it?
It is. The Teeth of the Sea, which
doesn't the same ring to it, does it?
It doesn't at all in English, but it gives you an inkling. So when I was looking at the title options, and they were very clunky in English, like the emotional last journey or something, or the flight went for the last time, and you're thinking that doesn't translate back at all. But it's obviously how other languages work differently. It's the culture, so that's why you use a translator. So it's interesting. You can't go on your instinct saying, well, as a writer, you craft every sentence to be as pithy, but that only works in your language. And
but that's the control. Honestly, the control freak in me is I don't think I can.
Sometimes you've got to let go. Sometimes you've just got to relax over that 7-iron and hit a 209-yard hook around the trees onto the green, as Rory did on the 16th, 15th.
And bringing us back to the subject.
So where we started, yes. Okay, that's it for this week, I think.
It is, yeah. And next time, you'll be in Aruba.
So what we might do, next week's episode is either going to be from Aruba.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully it will be. I mean, they have Wi-Fi in the Caribbean. If not, it'll be that episode on character. Otherwise, that will be the one after, the week after.
Yeah, but not the Slow Horses episode on character. We're going to record one to have in the bank, which is generally talking about character. Hopefully we'll have James from Aruba next week, but if not, we'll have one that we can share.
Yeah, Slow Horses and Gladiator 2, watch them, and we're going to record that in the middle of May, but we'd be interested in your opinions before that. I sort of put some prompts in the email last week, and if you're not on the email list, get on the email list, it'll help you.
Yeah, I had a couple of people saying, hang on, I didn't know that there was going to be homework involved.
I know.
In this show, we didn't sign up to that. It's a fun homework.
Yeah, go to indiewritersclub.com, front page there, put your email address in, you get the weekly email on a Friday, and that has all this stuff in it, including what to look out for in those two episodes. Oh, and just one extra note on Scribeshadow, which I missed, unfortunately, is there's a 20% off coupon, which I found after I'd signed up, which is Scribe20. Scribe20 will give you 20% off first-time users.
Fabulous. Well, thank you very much, James Blatch.
Hey, Cara Claire, thank you very much. You and I will actually speak tomorrow, and then I must pack some bags.
You must.
A couple of pairs of shorts, a couple of t-shirts. What else do you need for the Caribbean?
Sunglasses.
Basically on the equator.
You're done.
Although apparently you do need only ecologically friendly sun cream, so don't bring any of that stuff.
I'm not going with you, so I don't know why you're talking to me as if I am.
Everyone I'm talking to says, don't send me pictures.
I don't. Really actually hope your Wi-Fi's not working from Aruba, because I don't want to talk to you while you're out there.
Thanks for your support. Congratulations on your success this week in TikTok. And long may it continue.
Thank you very much. See you soon.
All right, bye.
Support the podcast and get exclusive access by joining our Patreon. From just $1 an episode, you'll be invited to our Discord server, where the weekly discussion continues every day. And our 2 top tiers include a monthly live Q&A with James and Cara. Head to indiewritersclub.com/support. Thank you for listening, and don't forget to subscribe, like and share. We'll see you next Friday.